is being recorded.
Okay, it looks like it is being recorded. On our conference line. We want to make sure we get this recorded. And we're inviting the whole planet to receive this testimony. So with that confirmation, I'm going to say shalom. Shalom to those who may be watching this recording. Shalom. And that's shalom from shalom that I bring to you today and that we feature. We welcome you to another prophetical revelation today. And this prophetical revelation features the true Shabbat day, the Sabbath day, Shabbat day from the month bull, This is new. I'll speak more on that in a few moments. From the month bull, that is of and for the observance for all Hebrew Israelites to follow. And now as we get started, and for the record, today's date, by two calendars is recognized first by the solar calendar, which is the fourth day of the second month. We're on the East Coast of the United States of America, the East Coast, and we have a couple more hours or so before sundown. Again, that's the fourth day of the second month of our year 6027. And that's until sundown. Then we move over into the fifth day of the second month of our solar year, 6027. And by the Gregorian calendar, today is being recognized by this planet, the whole world, as Friday, April 12th, on this side of the Earth hemisphere. Of course, on the other side, they're probably already on April 13th, Saturday, 2024. Same year. It's a different day on the other side of the planet. April 12th, again, April 12th, 2024. And now with that update, literally update. And should you, who is watching this video recording right now, should you care to find yourself in care of learning more of this truth, as you continue to follow along with us doing this video, along with others that we have presented and hosted of this testimony in particular, then let me take this moment and suggest that you grab hold to your King James Version Holy Bible, the 1611 Authorized Edition, King James Version Bible, as well as your Strong's Concordance. And make sure you get a writing utensil. Find something to write with, something to write on. Grab a tablet, some paper, write. And you're going to take plenty of notes. Take plenty of notes. And you may be wondering why. Why would I have to write and take plenty of notes? Well, because this revelation is going to require you to write. And as you write, then you must study what you wrote and what you write. I mean, this testimony is also going to turn you into a student of mathematics. A student of mathematics. And so much until when you become erudite as a result of what you study in mathematics, of this upcoming celestial calculatory. This is a calculatory measure of time. You never heard that word before. I repeat, this is going to be a calculatory measure of time And at the end of this testimony and revelation, then you will be handed your celestial diploma, your celestial guarantee that you will receive and then be rewarded with your mathematician diploma of 90 degrees. Your mathematician diploma of 90 degrees, and that will then enable you to stand, and ye. It will enable ye and you to stand at 90 degrees perpendicular to the square, the four corners of the square, which is the same as the four corners of the earth. Praise you.
Praise.
Now, with that said, let us make an extreme emphasis to you at this time. That's time, T-I-M-E. 4 letters. All you see in time is 4 letters, T-I-M-E, which also happens to be 2 words in English. 2 words, me and it. M-E-I-T, T-I-M-E. Time. Time that this prophetical revelation of time and of the Sabbath day was stored in the celestial soul of the one celestial being who is biblically, theologically, and who is historically known as the only begotten Son of the mighty God, Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, who is also the God of the Hebrews, Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. And of course, the only begotten Son of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, according to John chapter 3 and verse 16, is the same one of whom is symbolized by the sun, S-U-N, of the universe, and its luminous light of the cosmos, even of the heavens. The only begotten Son of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh is the very same only begotten Son that was promised to return to the surface of this planet in the last days, in like manner as he went up into heaven. According to the book called the Acts, in chapter 1, verse 11, you can read that. Read that on your own. Acts chapter 1, verse 11 says he will come in like manner as you see him go up into heaven over 2,024 years ago. And then when he comes back, he will then restore the true and correct time and its Sabbath day for the children of Yehudah, as well as the children of all of Israel, the other 11 tribes, to follow and obey. To follow and obey. Keep it in mind that this very same one celestial being is the one who is responsible for sealing up a pair of balances in his hand. For sealing up a pair of balances in his hand. That's according to Revelation chapter 6 and verse 5. And this hand, in English, H-A-N-D, hand, again, the English is idiom, H-A-N-D, from left to right. That word in English came from the original Hebrew word known as yod. Yod, which is Hebrew. And in Hebraic, yod is spelled from right to left, yod dalet. Yod. From right to left, yod dalet. However, the shocking revelation is that this same word in Hebrew, yod, from right to left, yod dalet, or spelled from left to right with the English characters or letters, Y-A-D, Y-A-D, yod, in English, from left to right. It also spelled in English from left to right, and that English spelling, it then produces the word known as day. D-A-Y, day, in English. So again, you have yod in Hebrew, yod, it from right to left. Y-A-D spells in its English pronunciation, yod, Y-A-D, from right to left. And then, of course, English, which is opposite, it spells day from left to right, D-A-Y. Now, this truth is found in the Strong's Concordance under reference H3027. The Strong's Concordance. Again, that's reference Strong's H3027, yod. And that word has since, during the history of this world, of England, again, has now been translated into English, the English word that is known today as hand. Hand, H-A-N-D, from left to right. Hand. That means the one who was prophesied and sealed up the pair of balances in his hand left a lot of cryptic mysteries in that word. Keeping in mind that this is the very same hand, H-A-N-D in English, or Yod Dalet in Hebrew, Yod. It is also day, D-A-Y in English, spelled backward, of which these particular days, in plural, are also prophetical and are of time. They are of time that were given into his hand, H-A-N-D. Just as it reads in Daniel chapter 7 and verse 25, it's the same hand. This hand, H-A-N-D in English, is the very same hand that smote the ram, R-A-M, with the eye missing. And that was moved with extreme color. Color, spelled in English from left to right, C-H-O-L-E-R, color. And that word means to show bitterness, extreme bitterness, according to the Strong's Concordance, a reference H4843. Make a note. Color. Color. Strong's H4843. That produced, remember, that came from the word ram, smoked the ram with the eye missing. And not only with the eye missing, but when you add the pH, actually the EPH, when you add the EPH with the ram and you put the I in ram, it becomes reem, then you have Ephraim, 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 all hidden and sealed secretly. Although, as my ARP once said, each letter is a word. Each word is scientifically composed of letters that you didn't know of, neither did you know about them. It's the very same hand. It's the very same hand that was also seen with fingers attached to that hand, who wrote in the same hour that came forth with those 5 fingers of this man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, and the king of that land, which he only saw part. The king of that land only saw part of that hand that wrote during that time. That's according to Daniel chapter 5 and verse 5. He only saw part of that hand. He didn't see all of the writing. If he saw all the writing, then he would have been able to stop what's happening today. That's chapter 5 of Daniel. But because he couldn't find all of the hand, only saw part of it, then he only thought to change times and laws. That was in chapter 7, that you can read now in chapter 7 of Daniel, verse 25. That's why he can only think of changing times and laws, because he only saw part of the hand. It was only that from a thought, with the fingers and the plaster on the wall. But as it was promised to return, the man's hand was promised to return at the last day, D-A-Y, and he's here now. That means this hand, H-A-N-D, is also in care of the 6,000 years that was allotted to Cain as a challenge to Cain to prove that he was qualified to rule of his own world, to be the ruler of his own world. And he was also blessed with protection as he tried to rule the entire planet, on which he failed. Of course, he failed. Cain failed to rule morally. Oh, he ruled, but he didn't rule morally. He ruled wickedly, as he's continuing to do, and his angels. And see, this truth you can confirm for yourself in the King James Version of the Holy Bible's book called Genesis. The first book of the Bible is called Genesis, not Genesis. There is no J in Hebrew or Greek. It's pronounced Genesis under the fourth Hebrew symbol known as Gimel. Genesis, Gimel, in chapter 4 of that book, in verse 7. And I'm going to read that for you. Genesis chapter 4, verse 7. It reads, as I quote, "If thou doest well, shall thou not be accepted? If thou doest well, shall thou not be accepted?" With a question. "And if thou doest not well, then sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him." It's quote unquote verbatim. Genesis chapter 4, verse 7. That verse tells you historically, for 6,000 years, Cain was given an opportunity to rule this planet morally and righteously with a good heart. Can't do that. He still cannot do it. Keeping in mind, for the record, and as a reminder, that this solar year is 6,027. That's 6,027 years. And the true Sabbath since then has been altered. The Sabbath day, according to solar time, not the moon, not lunar, solar time, which is now being observed this year by us from sundown Saturday till sundown Sunday. We're going to explain how we arrived to that shortly. But for now, that was merely the benediction of this intended revelation of time. And now as we get started and go into the core of this testimony in the form of his revelation, let me strongly suggest that to you that you continue to grab hold to your writing utensil and write on something, and please take plenty of notes. Please. Why? Why am I begging you to take notes? Because we are now about to go into the secret revelation of time. That's going to require you to write. You're going to have to write. I mean, don't always listen to what someone says. Encourage you to do something by words of their own. Write down the words that you hear that person or people say. Write them down, research them for yourself. That way you will fulfill was already printed in the book called 2 Timothy of the New Testament, chapter 2 and verse 15. 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 15 tells you to study to show thyself approved, not someone else's approval, your self-approval. Now, with that said, to wit, W-I-T, wit. We will not continue the resurrection of the celestial account according to what the devil has done. But we will continue the resurrection of this celestial account that originated by the voice of Mount Og, Yerewave, that commenced this celestial account, and its order that rules or was ruled at the time by the Gregorian calendar's year that was recorded of 1984, and its rotation, its proper rotation and order. And now, during that year, 1984, before we get into it, we're going to play that little segment for you. But before we do, let me say that during that year, in 1984, that recording of subject was done after March 11th, 1984. After March 11th that year, of which Mount Og was heard and declared, saying that the Sabbath day was being observed on a Sunday that year, and that our solar days began at sundown to sundown. Keeping in mind that, as I point out to you shortly, I'm going to, after that video is played, and as I point out to you a few moments ago during this benediction, that the English word known as hand, H-A-N-D, spelled from left to right, H-A-N-D, hand, that was taken from the Hebrew word yod, that's yod, dalet, from right to left, that also created the English word known as day, D-A-Y, from left to right, and in plural, days. It turns into the subject of this testimony. Days, rotate, D-A-Y-S, days, and then back down to day. Days and day. And you're going to hear that some more. But for now, with that explained, see, when this subject of the true time and the true Sabbath day was subjected by Mount Og in 1984, and was to be kept in its proper order by rotation every year, the revelation of the pair of balances or the bag of deceitful weight, or the revelation of the Gad, G-A-D, and Ephraim, with the ram hidden in Ephraim and the eye that proceeds the EPH, that was not mentioned by Ma'ab in 1984. I repeat, Gad, G-A-D, the revelation of the pair of balances in a bag of deceitful weights, and or revelation of the Gad or Ephraim was not revealed yet. You may be wondering why. Well, because it wasn't time yet. That's easy. It wasn't time. This means that the one to whom those prophetic cryptos were in possession of at the time, which are all inanimate, they are all inanimate objects, was not or had not been resurrected by Yahweh, Bethnos for Yahweh yet. Why? Well, because during that year in 1984, everyone around him and with him was still sleeping in the dust of the earth. Still sleeping in the dust of the earth. And so were you, in the dust of the earth, still sleeping, as you are today. You are still sleeping in the dust of the earth, according to Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. And you were put into that deep sleep way back in the beginning. That was also reiterated in the book called Isaiah chapter 29. Begin at verse 10, the spirit of deep sleep. You can make a note of that and read it. Again, it's Isaiah chapter 29, begin at verse 10, verses 10, 11, and 12. No matter how much you learn, if the book was given to you, you could not read it. It was sealed. You could not even learn from it because it was sealed. Even if you went to the school of theology, University of Theology, and studied all types of religions, you could not read or understand or comprehend that book. This book, known as the Holy Bible, King James Version, authorized, 1611 edition. In fact, I'm going to give you an example. We're going to get to that recording of 1984, but let's give you an example of what we mean by many, if not all of those back then, and even today is still sleeping in the dust of the earth, the spirit of deep sleep. So we're going to play part of lesson number 5 that was also created and made and formed and presented by my lesson number 5 of Our True History, the world's best kept secret. You are not a nigger. That's quote. And in that recording, you're going to hear Mount Ob. It was recorded by Mount Ob in the early to mid 1990s. You're going to hear him say something that I guarantee you're not going to be able to. You're going to be listening, but you're not going to hear it. But if so, then let's see if you can hear what he said in this short segment of this recording that you did not hear before. So look for that. Play that. I'm going to lesson number 5. Play it from that spot. Let's see what we can hear. Bring your volume real nice and loud, like up to. Nice
Reject the truth shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me, Yahweh. For their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and there shall be an abhorring unto all flesh. Everybody will hate them. And we see that right now exhibited. Everybody on the earth hates the so-called black man of America. All the nations of the earth despise the so-called black man of America. Have you ever wondered why? Have you ever considered why? Here is a special warning to all you false Christians in Milcah chapter 5, verses 18 and 19, which says, Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord Yahweh. To what end is it for you? As you cry for the day of the Lord in your churches, what end is it for you? The day of the Lord Yahweh is darkness. You don't know what you're crying for. Did you know you're crying for darkness? That's what Micah chapter 5, verses 18 and 19 say. It would be a day, the day of the Lord Yahweh is darkness and not light. As if a man did flee from a lion and a bear met him. Or went into the house and leaned his hand on the wall and a serpent bit him. Yes, dearly beloved, because you're lying, dumb, ignorant, dog creatures are not teaching you the truth, you are going to suffer all of these things, and you are suffering them now.
Well, did you hear it? Speaking of those who maybe watch this recording right now, you were asked to open your ears. See, did you hear it? And if you could not hear it, or if you did not hear it, it's because you do not have a pair of balances in your hand. There's only one that was prophesied and promised to come back today and return to his people that will have a pair of balances in his hand. But you don't know what those balances are. You don't know what that cryptic meaning and prophetic cryptogram stands for, what it means. For example, did you hear Ma'ab said, here's a special warning to all you false Christians in the book in Milcah chapter 5, verses 18 and 19. See, he said Milcah, which is a variant of Micah in the woman or the female form. Milcah, chapter 5, verse 18 and 19. So you're not going to find a verses 18 and 19 in Micah chapter 5. But what you would find, although, see, he told you turn to Milcah, and then he quoted from Amos chapter 5, verse 18 and 19, because at the time Amos was around. My people were following Amos. They were following Amos and the Peace Foundation at the time when that was recorded in the early to mid 1990s. But at the time they were following Amos, I was telling you today to turn to Micah. turn to Micah. So as you turn to Micah, what are you going to find out? What are you finding out? We also told you to turn to Micah, do the same subject. Turn to Micah. We're going to take that off the screen. We're going to go to the next video in a moment. Turn to Micah. Are you turning to Micah? Or who is Micah? Or you should want to know, why did he tell you to turn to Micah? Why? Why did he tell you to turn to Micah? He said turn to Milcah, but he said that was Micah said. Or is it because Micah will guide you? Micah will guide you into all truth, the whole truth. And he will also teach you all things, according to John chapter 14, verse 26. See, you have to turn to the truth, that you will not be found sleeping. See, if you turn to the truth, then you will not be found sleeping in the dust of the earth anymore. You will awake to everlasting life, according to, again, Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. You will awake to everlasting life. But to those who do not want to wake, and when you finally do wake to some kind of waking up, then you will awake to shame and everlasting contempt. It's guaranteed. It's prophetical. You cannot escape prophecy. You cannot escape prophecy. No one can. And see, if you wake up, you would be found sleeping with your hand on the wall and a serpent bite the short hand of your clock. That's symbolic. See, the hand on the wall, the only hand on the wall and the clocks, the two hands, a long hand, a short hand. That's on the plaster on the wall. See, the king could not comprehend that. It's Daniel chapter 5, verse 5. The plaster on the wall means that there would be a hand that would be put on the plaster on the wall. When that wall is plastered in your house, then you're going to put a clock on that wall where the plaster is, and in that clock is going to be a hand, two hands, a long hand, a short hand. The short hand is the hour. The long hand, of course, is the minutes. Then you have a red hand that goes around every seconds. Well, that hand symbolizes, the short hand symbolizes the hour, and that hour hand that will cause you not to know what hour your Lord cometh. And you go meet a bear. See, a bear would be you. That means you would barely know when he's coming. You would be bare. You would be bare without the knowledge that you should know of time and the true Sabbath day. Sound familiar? That you wouldn't know what hour your Lord cometh? If not, then go to Matthew chapter 24 and read verse 42, and you'll see it. Right now, we're living the days of Matthew chapter 24 and Mark chapter 13. These are the last days, people. I'm not going to go to read it. You read it. Matthew chapter 24, verse 42. That's in case you want to know, that's backward. 24, 42. Forward and backward. Got you going forward and backward. You look at a backward clock. You're following the lunar time. You're following the moon and their days. So now, with that said, let's play the other recording, another recording for you that we mentioned of subject that was apparently being held during probably the feast of Passover and unleavened bread. But when you play this in its entirety, you will hear the voice of a commentator of this video, the next video, that says in the beginning that this video recording features the Feast of Tabernacles that began with the subject of Deuteronomy chapter 16 by Ma'ab. And that features the first month, Abib. So let's play that video for you, recording for you as part of today's audience that is found today on YouTube. While we are now on the YouTube website, go ahead and play that. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his name. For the Lord Yahweh is good. His mercy is everlasting, and his truth endures to all generations. Praise Yahweh.
Tabernacles, Preparing for Rulership, Part 1.
All right, let's go to Deuteronomy 16. Try not to hold you too long tonight. I know you have someplace to go. How many of you come to be with me 8 days a night? Praise God. How many of you came here to see me? Praise God. And you don't mind if I entertain you for a little while in Yahweh's word. Well, let's read up a little bit on Deuteronomy 16. Let's start at verse 1. Read. Now that's the only month that Yahweh names. The rest after that are numbered. He named the first month Abib. The other months are 2nd through 12, each with 30 days. Each of Yahweh's months have 30 days. All 12. At the end of 12, you add 5 days, and at the end of 5 days is Abib 1 forever. And then you will notice that when you follow the Gentile and the Jewish calendar, you will see that the Sabbath will fall on the advanced day of the week. Each year, it will change days. This year, since Yahweh used the sun as the timepiece, the correct time with Yahweh is solar time. He made the sun to rule the day, and he told us that the day is from evening to evening. From sundown through sundown is a day. So the moon does not rule the night. The sun rules the day, and the day includes the darkness and the light. White people, being the devil and opposer of Yahweh, set up a lunar calendar, and that's what you're familiar with. Praise Yahweh. They changed the times and the laws. Now, I don't want to get off of that tonight, but I'm just giving you a very brief synoptic understanding. So while false Jews worship Saturday, we worship the seventh day. Yahweh blessed the seventh day, not Saturday. Nowhere in your Bible does it teach us to worship Saturday. But Yahweh said in Genesis, worship the seventh day. It's holy. Genesis 2:2. Let's just take a peek. I'm not going to prove solar calendar tonight. One day I'll do that when I'm feeling real good. The reason I'm not doing it now is because this keeps all false teachers and everybody shut up. They cannot teach it because they don't know it. So, as usual, they have to wait on me to teach it before they can run around pretending they know. I tell you about it, you can't get it either. Get on your knees and pray all you want to. Fast all you want to. You're not the servant that Yahweh chose to reveal it to. You can try. Genesis 2:2. Read it. Praise God. a super complex, compounded verse. But just understand that Yahweh blessed the seventh day. Now you ought to know you're not keeping the seventh day with the white man's calendar when he has leap year. He gains a day, huh? And in the 7 years, he gains 7 days. So how can you be keeping the seventh day when to get back in tune with the solar calendar, he has changed a day, every 4 years. So in 28 years, he has changed a whole week. Whole week. But every 4 years is leap year. 7 times 4 is 28. So it takes the devil 28 years to get back in tune with Yahweh. Then he starts it all over again. So there's no way in the world that you're worshiping the seventh day, blessing the seventh day, following the devil. But it takes him 28 years to get back on track. Then he leads you astray for 28 more years. So this year's Sabbath is on Sunday. Next year's Sabbath will be on Monday. That's 85. 86, it'll be Tuesday. 87, it'll be Wednesday. 88, Thursday. 89, Friday. 90, back to Saturday. But every single day gets equal treatment with Yahweh. So when you keep solar time, then Yahweh has set it in motion how he wants it to be. So that's a little wisdom on the first month, Abib. And the entire Bible is counted according to Yahweh's time. And if you do not count according to the way Yahweh set time in motion, you're out of time. You're out of step with time. That'll keep you under a curse instead of a blessing. But Yahweh said, keeping the Sabbath is a sign between us. Exodus what? Exodus 31. 13. You have to keep the right day to be blessed. Read. Speak to the world. Speak to all the races and the nations. See, this is all about us. If you don't know that you're the children of Israel, you don't know this is talking to you. So the first trick of the devil is to make you think Israel is white people. So by now, how many of you have never read Revelation 3:9? Let me see your hands. You've never read Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. Somebody in the back? Turn to it for her sake. Is anybody? So write down Revelation 3:9, and in there it tells you that the Jew is false and he's a liar. Those who say they're Jews are not, but do lie. I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Then he said in Revelation 2:9, I'm going to make them come and worship before your black feet. So they're liars. So what do you look like following Judaism? Judaism is a white man's invented lie, full of rituals. And the white man has Christmas, so the false Jew came up with Hanukkah. No Hanukkah in the Bible. Nowhere, ever. Invented lies. Exodus 31:13. Read. These are also to the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbath you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you, the house of Israel, that we may know I am the Lord Yahweh, that will sanctify you. Read. You shall keep the Sabbath therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that defiles it shall surely be put How long? How long? How long? Well, forever has not ended. So this law is in effect now. And if you don't turn from your evil, wicked ways of breaking Yahweh's laws and not keeping his Sabbath, you're going to be cut off from among us. And cut off means your head will be cut off, or you'll be thrust through. The devil's going to kill you. Now, I've done my job when I warn you. It's up to you now. Do it.
Okay. Praise my heart. Praise y'all. Praise him for that. In fact, I praise him for everything he does. For you first. You. For ye. I don't praise him for myself. I come from him. I praise him for you. Why? Because he gave you to me. All souls are mine. But that's not my subject right now. The subject is, I pray you heard what was said. Or did you hear that the original establishment of our Sabbath day count and its rotation, did you hear when it began? Keep in mind that the year mentioned was 1984. And in 1984, our Sabbath day was being observed from sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday. Then my Lord also mentioned that the only month that Yahweh named was Abib. Abib in English, just from left to right, A-B-I-B. However, from right to left, Abib is Aleph, Beth, Yod, Beth. Abib. Right? He said that. Correct. And no one can change that. No one. However, another secret that you did not know is that the sun also named a month. See, he said the only month that Yahweh named was Abib. But the sun that he also mentioned in that recording was a timepiece that was ruling time. Did you know that the sun also created a month, named a month? Did you know that? In fact, the month that the sun created or named for himself is a month that's known as B. Begin with a B. Remember the B? For Beth by B. Remember, Mount Arb in another video recording said he's John the Baptist, A. He's John the Baptist, A. And his student and disciple that the world is calling today Jesus, remember his name was Yahshua. Yahshua was a disciple, a student and a disciple of John, the Christ. The Christ was a student and a disciple, still is, of John. And the Christ is deemed or was deemed by John as B during that testimony in 1986. That interview. It's called the Time Interview. It's also on YouTube. And both A and B are one. See, both A and B in alphabetical order in the English alphabet, from left to right, A and B are one. And that one is symbolized as a Roman numeral 1, eyes. You look at it as I. And when you put A and B together from left to right, when you put A and B together from left to right, and then place the I after the B, then you place another B after that I, then that creates the name known as Abib. Right? Abib. you have a beard. Again, in Hebrew, it's Aleph, Beth, Yod, Beth. But what you did not know is that when John baptized the Christ and went to prison and was placed in prison, even this time, as the same happened over 2,000 years ago, 2,030 years ago. Over 2,030 years ago, John was placed in prison, just as John was placed in prison again this time. But this time was November 7th, 1990. November 7th, 1990. And when John was placed in prison on November 7th, 1990, 6 years after that, which was 1996, something happened. And in 1996, when something happened, that's when the son of Yehoshua began to write and testify more and more of his Aleph Beth, which is the same as the calendar at that time of the solar calendar, 1996, 28 years ago, which was 6,000 and in 2019, 6,590. My math is bad, so don't go by my math. It's 6,027, so it's been 6,019. Am I right or wrong? It doesn't matter to me, because the devil has everyone counting backward. See, that was a demonstration. In that same interview, Ma'ab said that the one who he raised, who became a student, would have to be clever, adroit, sagacious, and have the ism of the ift. Sounds a little confusing, doesn't it? But we'll get more into that mystery in a few moments. But for now, the son of Yehoshua also made a commemoration of how many years from 1979, when Moses Israel first came to Miami, 1979, until the year when Yahweh, he came to Miami. First of all, he came to Miami as Moses Israel. You gotta remember that. Came to Miami in 1979 as Moses Israel. And then in 1990, he went in prison as Yahweh ben Yahweh. So from 1979, when Moses Israel first came to Miami, until the year when Yahweh ben Yahweh was arrested in New Orleans, Louisiana, which was 11 years later, then the son, the student disciple, wrote a book that year. And he wrote another book another year, 1992. Then he wrote another book in 1996. Now, for a moment, go to, if you have your Bible, go look at 1 Kings chapter 6 for a moment. Turn to 1 Kings chapter 6. I'm going to read verse 38. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 38. And that reads, as I quote, "And in the 11th year, in the 11th year, in the month Bull, in the month Bull with a B, which is the 8th month, was the house finished throughout all the parts thereof, and according to all the fashion of it. And so was he 7 years in building it." Now, that's end quote, quote unquote. That means that when Ma'ab was arrested on November 7th, 1990, that was the 8th month of our solar calendar. Did you know that? November 7th was the 8th month of our solar calendar. And the word bull that you see here in this verse, B-U-L in English, from left to right, B-U-L. You know how our people today say, man, that's bull. You may be saying it now. We talk about, man, that's bull. Mika don't know this, that's bull. Well, it is, it's bull. B-U-L. That you read, or you saw if you wasn't reading in that verse. That word in English came from the original Hebrew word known as bull. And it spells in Hebrew from right to left, Beth, Wab, Lamed. Beth, Wab, Lamed. And that word, it means, here's what it means. It means to bring the first ripe fruit, to lead the first ripe fruit, to carry the first ripe fruit, to conduct them, bear along with them, and to bring them away and lead them away from captivity, to lead and conduct, and to be born along with them, to be born, B-O-R-N-E, to the grave, and to be brought from the grave, be led from the grave, and be conducted in a different kind of way. Now, the proof of that, and you can look it up for yourself, is in your Strong's Concordance at a reference H. First, three references. The first reference is H 944. That creates the word bull. Beth Yod Lamed. Or Beth Wab Lamed. Beth Wab Lamed. The second reference is H 2981, 2981. And finally, the third reference is H 2986. And you'll find all those meanings in those three references that I just quoted. And the house that was mentioned in that verse was finished and represents the temple of love at the time. At the temple of love, which was also called international headquarters. And that is when it was dismantled. Not demolished, but it was dismantled. Raided by the federal agency of the FBI on November 7th, 1990, and was dismantled shortly after that. And in the 6th year after that, 1990, from 1990 was 1996. And that was sometime around August that summer. During 1996, I remember it quite well. Sometime around August, that summer of 1996, I began to write another book that involved time. It involved time and the sunshine that was deemed by me as being black. Reference Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. Black, I am black. And that also featured how I met and lived with Yahweh, Ben Yahweh, from 1981 in the temple that was dismantled in 1990. So because of that, in 1996, I wrote another book, and I named that book, and I named that book, quote, Black Sunshine, end quote. And although that book never got published, I still have a copy of that book to this day, 2024. Needless to say, I did send a copy of that book to Yahweh Ben Yahweh while he was in Lewisburg Penitentiary in Pennsylvania that year. And he wrote me back weeks later. And when he wrote me back weeks later, he addressed me in that letter. For the first time, as I opened that envelope and read that letter, he addressed the letter by saying, Shalom, in Hebrew, not dear Mika, or how you doing, Mika, or Shalom, Mika. He put Shalom in Hebrew characters. I will never forget that. And little did I know at the time, then Yahweh Ben Yahweh was telling me that I am Shalom, according to Micah chapter 5 and verse 5. And that I was at the same time of year, I was to start something that is happening today, a 28-year count. I started a 28-year count of shalom and the balances that I held in my hand, a pair of balances in my hand. It was a 28-year cycle of the true Sabbath day and the correct time, which is the same as this year, 2024. So let me explain it. Let's explain it. We're going to us. Let us explain what that means. So pay attention. See, the celestial appellation known as John the Baptist, or A, he created the IFT, I-F-F-T, from left to right, the IFT, to give to the son of John the Baptist, who is B. And B created another name that he gave to the 8th year that I just mentioned, and that's Bull. And then he said that the next year after that day will be observed in that video on a Monday, 1985. Now we're going back to 1985 from 1996. And then in 1986, the Sabbath would be rotate and go to a Tuesday. And then in 1987 on a Wednesday, and so on to Thursday, 1988, and to Friday in 1989. And then we have to observe the Sabbath right back to Saturday in 1990, the year when they took him into custody. And then in 1991, right back to Sunday, sundown to Monday. So with that now reiterated, today's date, of course, being Friday, April 12th, I'm just going to reiterate 2024, as well as the 4th day of the second month of our solar calendar, 6027. I did that, I reiterated that so you can follow along what we're about to reveal again. So pay close attention. We played at least 7 to 8 minutes of that video recording that you heard my voice speaking of the Sabbath day and its rotation. So that you can now know how we arrived to today, and from year to year and from month to month and day to day to this day that I just proclaimed. Let us do so again by reiterating that that year, Sabbath day was being observed on a Sunday. Now, as I pause for a moment, please, you believe in my art and believe also in me. I was created by him, made by him, formed by him. I was named by him. In fact, named. I was named Mika. I was called Mika. I was a name. I was called Mika by him in 1979. When I came to him, he called me Mika. I was also raised by him. As you heard in that video, he's being still called to this day Yahweh. That was him saying Yahweh named 1 month Abib. That's him, Yahweh. You also heard him say Yahweh in the previous recording of lesson number 5. Where he said me, Yahweh. If you were listening, you couldn't hear it. You were listening. So since it being in 1984 was being observed as a Sunday, then that means that we are now here today, 40 years later, in 2024, observing Shabbat on a Sunday. 1984 Sunday, 19 year or so between that as a Sunday, or a couple of years. Keep in mind that the number value of Mem that created Mika is 40. The Hebrew symbol Mem, the number value is 40, which is the 13th Hebrew symbol, the first that empowers my name, or what I'm called, Mika. So let's do this. In 1984, the Sabbath day was being observed on a Sunday. And at that time, when you get to 1994, 2 years later after that, 1996, I began a 28-year cycle that I took from the devil, and of his leap years, 7 times 4, and I took that and placed a pair of balances in my hand. I placed a pair of balances in my hand. That means I am the one who was loose from the third seal on the third day with a pair of balances in my hand. Mine hand, M-I-N-E, backward, and carry the Hebrew word yod. That enables me to calculate the time, T-I-M-E, and that's calculate. For the word count, C-O-U-N-T, with a pair of balances in my hand. Even as I have already sat on a black horse, black sunshine, in the past, in time past. This secret was sealed in Revelation chapter 6, verse 5. I'm going to read that, so follow along with me. Revelation chapter 6, verse 5, and it reads, and I quote, "And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand," end quote. Now, this revelation is now telling this entire planet that this one who sat on this black horse is Micah. And the horse, H-O-R-S-E in English, is an allegory and a simile in prophetic for the word power, P-O-W-E-R. And this power is the same power is what was used that came forth with fingers of a man's hand, who then wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of a clock of the king's palace. Again, in 1 hour of a day. You also heard my op say in that video that you wouldn't mind being with him, and you wouldn't mind him being with you 8 days a night. 8 days a night, almost like 8 nights a week. And we know there's only 7 days a week according to that calendar. I mean, this power was also sealed in the book called Micah. Because I said in Micah chapter 5 and verse 5 that I will raise against them 7 shepherds and 8 principal men in my book. I mean, those 7 shepherds are symbolizing 7 days, and those 8 principal men are the nights. 7 shepherds, 8 principal men, 7 days, 8 nights a week. In Micah chapter 3 and verse 8, I also sealed something else. And that reads, Micah chapter 3 and verse 8, and that reads, I quote, "But truly I am full of power. The same power is in my hand by the Spirit of the Lord, and of judgment, and of might, to declare to Jacob his transgression, and to Israel his sin." End quote. This power of Micah chapter 3 and verse 8 is the power from that horse of Revelation chapter 6 verse 5, which is celestial. This power is celestial, and this power identifies the one who sat on this horse that was sealed as a black horse. It was sealed as black because of darkness. It was dark. And that symbolizes that when this one who sat on that powerful horse was in his hand, the balances, also described symbolically as a pair of balances, then that immediately identified this one, Micah, who had already sat on this powerful horse, as he also sat in darkness. He also sat in darkness. Now, this is proven in Micah chapter 7, verses 8 and 9, and that reads, Micah chapter 7, verse 8 and 9, that reads, and I quote, 8, "Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy. When I fall, I shall arise. When I sit in darkness, the Lord shall be a light unto me." Verse 9, "I will bear the indignation of the Lord, because I have sinned against him, until he plead my cause and execute judgment for me. He will bring me forth to the light, and I shall behold his righteousness. End quote. Now, looking back at this passage, verse 8 confirms the darkness that this power of Micah's hand was facing as he sat in darkness of time. And verse 9 means that Micah would bear a particular indignation that the Lord Yahweh himself had left for only Micah to bear. And that indignation of Yahweh himself is his own children worshiping and serving other gods and the laws and standards of this other gods, especially those of the land where Judah is being held today, captive and bondage. And among those laws and standards of this land, as it is in all other lands of this planet, is keeping the correct Sabbath day that Judah is not. The Sabbath day that this land and all Christians of this world is recognizing is Sunday, that never rotates. And the Sabbath day that the Jews are recognizing is from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, that never rotates. And that became an indignation in the mind of my opposed to Judah worshiping and honoring and observing the correct Sabbath on the correct time and day. And that is proven in Deuteronomy chapter 29 and verses 1 through 29, that Judah is not keeping the correct Sabbath. As you heard my op say, you follow the wrong Sabbath, you're going to die. You'll be cut off. I'll even say you'll even get your head cut off. But in Deuteronomy chapter 29 and verses 1 through 29 is what happened and why the indignation is befalling Micah today, of which verses 24 through 29 reads, and I quote, verse 24 in Deuteronomy chapter 29, even all nations shall say, wherefore hath the Lord done thus unto this land? What meaneth the heat of this great anger? Verse 25, that men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord God of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. Verse 26, for they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not, and whom he had not given unto them. Verse 27, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book, even as Ma'ab mentioned that in that video. They be cursed. Verse 28 says, and the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation. There's indignation and great indignation, and cast them into another land where they are today, Judah, in America, as it is this day in the United States of America and all the Caribbean islands. In fact, all nations of this planet, Judah is scattered. Verse 29 tells you that there was a secret, and there is a secret. It was until I'm revealing it today, these last days. See, the secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law that I've given to you now, the secrets. Shiloh is here, according to Genesis chapter 49, verse 10. Shiloh is here. And now is the time for the gathering of the people. Shiloh is here. So you should want to know, what is the law that caused the indignation of the Lord? And I've been sitting here telling you this for the past hour or so. Why? Because the answer is keeping a secret of when the true Sabbath day of the Hebrews is supposed to be kept every year as a sign. And that Judah is waking up and returning to their own God today. A lot do not know that, but it's happening. And that secret was introduced by Yahweh in 1984, but only as a synoptic. Remember, he said a synoptic overview he was given that night. Remember? And that was the same year when the Sabbath day was being observed on a Sunday in 1984. And that would mean that this introduction was made after March 11th of 1984, when that was introduced back then. You should want to know why, if that's the question you have in your mind. Because our next year cycle of 12 months of 30 perfect days, that's 30 perfect days times 12 months equals 360 days. It's also known as the beginning in spring. That's when it happens. But the Gregorian almanac signifies sometime that spring day begins on their calendar March 16th. That's what they say. They named it March. Usually it's based on the 11th day of March of our calendar. Signifies the beginning, the first day of our year, our next year. So anyway, with that being said, the Jews recognize it as Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread at the same time. You want to know why they recognize Passover? And I hear my people out today going all the way to April, counting 14 days after the first day and looking at Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, still this land being cursed, eating flat bread, laying flat, still sleeping in the grave, dust of the earth. Why don't you come out of her, my people? Stop following the devils and this indignation that's now opposed upon me. I'm bearing the indignation of the Lord today. Why do you think I'm so into wanting and doing what I'm to do? To come out of it, to get you back, bring you back from the devil, destroy death. See, I'm the one that was prophesied and it was sealed with a pair of balances in my hand. A pair of balances in my hand. So what is a pair of balances? And I promise I would reveal it. Well, the balances in Revelation is symbolic and allegorical for ears, which are a pair of ears. Now, this is proven in the Hebrew word known as azan. Azan. That's Ayin, Zion, Aleph, Nun Sophie. You'll find on the Strong's reference H239. And that is a primitive root word, rather identical with Strong's H238, spelled Aleph, Zion, Nun Sophie, Azan, through the idea of scales as if it were two ears. You can find it in your concordance. I'm quoting. So these two balances are two ears. And these were the two ears that will enable you to hear. And that will explain why the very first word that you read in Micah chapter 1 and verse 2 is hear. Used to hear, listen, hearken, give ear to, obedient, be obedient, listen to prayers, the prayers of God. And that will also explain why you did not hear him say where or when or how you are to add to those 5 days during your count of so many years, after 4 years. And that is every 4 years of that calendar, which is called a leap year, times 7 years. When I wrote that book in 1996, that year is when I started my 28-year cycle. Which means what? That means that the same year of 1996 and this year is the very same calendar. Go check it out for yourself and see. 1986 and 2024 is the same calendar. January 1st began on a Monday, and same as it was this year. January 1st fell on a Monday. If you go pull it up on Google or go to a computer website and pull up 2024 calendar, and you'll see today's date as Friday, April 12th. And pull up 1996, and you see today's date, Friday, April 12th, in 1996, the same calendar. It also, by the way, is a leap year. Both years a leap year. This means that the year also is a calculation of a count that when Micah returned, he will loose his celestial calculator of mathematics, and then Mika will use that calculator as a count for us to count. But for us not to count the treasures of the wickedness, this count is the count that's empowered by Revelation chapter 11. And in verse 3, it says he will give power unto my two witnesses. But this count begins in Revelation chapter 11, verse 1. This count is not the count of verse 2 of Revelation chapter 11. That's the count that's left out and measured for the Gentiles. That means this count that we're going to do that is not for the Gentiles is a celestial and a moral count, a solar count. But for us, we do not count, and this count is not for the treasures of the wickedness that are now in the house of the wicked. Why? Because their count is a scant measure, a scant count, S-C-A-N-T, a scant count. That word scant means to lean, reference Strong's H 7329, lean, scant means to lean. And that is how they measure their time, leaning. And it calls you to follow their measure. If you follow their count and their measure, that calls you to lean on the wall. So you lean your hand on the wall and then a serpent bites you. That's where the serpent comes in. Will bite you. As you do, you find yourself leaning your hand on the wrong wall. That serpent's waiting for you on that wall to bite your hand, to bite your hour hand, your clock hand. As I now find leaning on the wall, their wall of their time, where my eye was reading out of the book of Amos in that video, chapter 5, verse 18 and 19. Their wall of time, just as it was promised in Amos chapter 5, verse 19, that serpent going to bite you. So make a note of that. This means that their count of measure is abominable. It's abominable. And all abominations, all abominable are going to find their part in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, according to Revelation chapter 21 and verse 8. Now, this is proven in secret. I'm going to loose it today. It's proven in secret in the book called Micah in chapter 6 and verses 10 and 11. And that reads, I'm going to quote it. It reads, I quote, verse 10, are there yet the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is abominable? Verse 11, shall I, Micah, shall I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights? Them meaning the devil. Shall I count them pure? Shall I count them pure with the wicked balances? They have wicked balances, and with the bag of deceitful weights? Can you answer the questions? If you cannot, I can. So let me answer the questions. Let us answer questions in order for you to get the truth of our Sabbath day observance. First, let's do so by the word bag, B-A-G, in English, from left to right, bag, B-A-G, that's found today in Micah chapter 6, verse 11. That bag is an allegory. That bag is an allegory for the word or for the name Gad, G-A-D, from left to right. Who is Gad? Gad is the 11th son of Jacob, or Jacob. How is that? Because the B that you see in bag in Micah chapter 6, verse 11, that bag is spelled with a lowercase b of this bag from left to right in English. And when you turn this lowercase b that's facing the east to the west, that's facing the east to the west, or backward, then it becomes the English letter known as D. And when you take the now dag, D-A-G, as we got rid of that B and made it a D-A-G, the B-A-G, that is from left to right, and turn them toward the west, from right to left, then that now spells Gad, G-A-D. Now, the name Gad means troop. Troop, troop. Reference Strong's H 1410, 1410, Gad, troops. Now take a look at Genesis chapter 49, verse 19, as I read. And that says, I quote, verse 19, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last, end quote. The last what? That's the last days. And that's confirmed in verse 1 of Genesis chapter 49. Gad also means invade and attack. Reference Strong's H 1464. Now take a look at Micah chapter 5 as in the fifth hand or 5 days, and verse 1 of Micah chapter 5 that says, I quote, Now gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. He hath laid siege against us. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. End quote. Now, with that said and read, this name Gad, G-A-D in English from left to right, that name of the 11th son of Jacob seal these troops that are preserved for today in plural, which is another allegory for days in plural. These troops are also days in plural. And these days are found as 30. That makes up a perfect solar month that must now be revived and restored in the last days, just as promised by the judge of Israel that was smitten with a rod upon the cheeks during the bondage of Judah, that which Micah had promised to return in the last days to declare in Jacob his transgression and to Israel his sin. Sin of what? Breaking the law of the Sabbath. How? By telling Judah, or to tell Yehudah the truth. How? By declaring the truth to Jacob, and show the truth to Israel, and make known the true Sabbath day to all 12 tribes, to quicken, restore, and revive the true time during the springtime, and to breathe the breath of life back into Judah's nostrils as a valley of dry bones that will eventually revive Judah, as well as, even in the springtime, Ephraim. All that was hidden in the word known to you only as troops. Reference Strong's H 2416 and H 2421 and H 3331. Actually, H 2331. Make a note. Again, those references are 3. The first is H 2416. The second is H 2421. And the third is 2331. All hidden under troops in those meanings. This also came from the name Gad, troops, the 11th son of Jacob, whose name and meaning is preserved. It was preserved for the last days. Again, that's found in Genesis chapter 49 and verse 19, which are 19 years between 1935 and 1954. And read that again on your own. That's Genesis chapter 49 and verse 19. This means that in order to do this, reviving and restoring of the true Sabbath day observance, we must now go to the previous year of 1984, 41 years ago, and that would be the year known as 1983, and that would begin in the month called Bull in October. So when we go now to 1983, we must go first look at the first of the two deities. The first one, as they have the month September, is known as the Feast of Tabernacles. On the 15th day of the 7th month of our calendar is the Feast of Tabernacles. But when we count from the Feast of Tabernacles, which is found in Leviticus chapter 23 and verses 34 through 36, you can read that on your own. 15th day of the 7th month. You count 30 days, and that will bring you to the 15th day of the 8th month. which is the month known and the sun created a name that's known as Bull. I read for you earlier. You can rewind us and go back to it. It's known as Bull. Again, it's spelled from right to left in Hebrew. Beth Wab Lamed. So that means that our count 30 days after the Feast of Tabernacles of 1983, which fell on a sundown September 26th to sundown September 27th, which is the 15th day of the 7th month. Then that month, that means that will start a count on a Monday. Let's see, September 26th of 1983 was on a Monday at sundown, the Tuesday at sundown. So you're going to start from that count. And then you're going to count 15 more days, and you get to the first day of the 8th month. And that would be 30 exact days. When you count 15 days for the 15th day of the 7th month, 15 plus another 15, that's 30. Then you have the 15th day of the 8th month at sundown. That would be known as, and you can calculate it and look at it, that would be Wednesday, October 26th, 1983. Wednesday, October 26th to Thursday, October 27th, 1983 is the 15th day of the 8th month. And that date fulfilled Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 in 1935. I'm going to read that. The 15th day of the 8th month of the year 5938 of our solar year, which is 83 backward. That fulfilled Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 in 1935. That reads, as I quote, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." Shalom. End quote. That means that Christ was not born on the 15th day of the 8th month. The Everlasting Father was. The Father of the Christ was born on that day. And that's where Micah, with a pair of balances in his hand, began the count toward this day, the Sabbath, this year. That means as we use that date in October 1983, we begin our count towards our next solar year of our completion of 360 perfect days, or 12 months times 30 days, to see and confirm how we got to Sunday, 1984, be the Sabbath day. And when we did so, we calculated that on Friday, beginning the 16th, and from Thursday to November 11th, 1983, that began to be a sundown, being the first day of the 9th month. And then we counted 30 more days from Friday, November 11th at sundown, to Saturday, November 12th at sundown. That began the first full day of the 9th month. And that should take us to and put us on, and it did, on Sunday, December 11th at sundown, to Monday, December 12th, 1983 at sundown, as the first day of the 10th month. And then we counted 30 days from Sunday, December 11th at sundown to Monday, December 12th, 1983 at sundown. And that began the first full day of the 10th day of the 10th month. That should take us now and put us on Tuesday, January 10th at sundown, to Wednesday, January 11th, 1984 at sundown, as the first day of the 11th month. Now we're in the next year of that calendar, January 11th. And then we counted 30 more days from Tuesday, January 10th, sundown, to Wednesday, January 12th, 1984 at sundown. And that began the first day of the 11th month. And that took us now and put us on Saturday, March 10th, 30 days at sundown, to Sunday, March 11th, 1984, at sundown, as the first day of the first month that was recognized in that video recording as a bib, as well as the year 1984, that Mount Orb deemed as our Sabbath day that year. And then he said that the next year, our Sabbath day would be observed on a Monday. And then he uttered the year 1985. So we went from October of 1983 and counted 30 perfect days for 3 more months. That's the 8th month we did, the 9th month, the 10th, 11th month we did from 10, 11, and 12, and we got to March 11th, 1984. That confirmed that was a year of observance of Sunday as our Sabbath day. Now, had we added 5 days onto that count on that day, on that Monday, we would not have been on Sunday in 1984. That would have put us in the middle of the week, sometime around Thursday or Friday, toward the end of the week. Again, that's from Saturday, March 10th at sundown, to Sunday, March 11th at sundown, March 1984 at sundown, was the first day of the first month that year. The Nob said was a bib. And who was he speaking to? Those that can hear. Now, when you go on and on, now when you get to, you do your own calculations. I did this in a previous video. But when you go on from 1984 to 1985, which was, of course, I don't know if you do this, but 1984 was a leap year. 1984 was a leap year. That started the first series of 7 leap years, times 28 years. And when you do that, it's going to take you to 2012 of those 7 times 4 leap years from 1984. The next leap year was 1988, and then you had 1992, and every 4 years until you get to 2012. However, when you do that count, it's going to throw you way off. And you're going to also see how the days diminish when you go from year to year in those leap years, how you lose March 11th, March 10th, March 9th, March 8th, every year, a different day that those dates fell on, as you lose a whole week, 7 days. However, when you do your count, when you count from 2016 as the first leap year after 2012, then the devil wants you to take that leap year and continue your count. And you're going to find yourself with a different day of the week that's not rotating the Sabbath day of the previous year to get to this year. That means the only way you can get to this year on your count is to start from 1996. Why is that? Well, we have, and we calculated, there are at least 6 more years from 1979 that January 1st fell on a Monday. You can do this study for yourself. Research it. I repeat, there are at least 6 more years from 1979 that January 1st fell on a Monday. And those years were not leap years. So the question should be, why would January 1st fall on a Monday, as it did this year, and they were not leap years? Because the devil thought to change times and laws. Let's just read that as we get ready to close. That's Daniel chapter 7 and verse 25. And that reads, verse 25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of times, end quote. Those divided of times are called leap years today. dividing them up into the years and the months. They give the shortest month of the year to my people to look at and commemorate them being African Americans and slaves. So you're not to meddle. You're not to meddle with them. Meddle not with them, and meddle not with their counts, and be not partakers of their sins. Come out of her and do this rotation according to what I'm telling you today. I place it in my hand. The balances, I place in my hand. When you count from 1996 and you count 20, you're going to count 28 years. And you rotate. When you start that rotation, you come to the same Sabbath day in 1996 as you do today, a Sunday, from sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday. I guarantee you. If you have a problem with that, then you should see me. You know, send a message to me. I'm on a recording. I'm not going to give it to the devil. You have to find your way here so I can tell you in private how you count those days to follow the true Sabbath. If I put this on a video right now on how you count that to get to how we are today, I'd be telling the whole world, even for the devils. Cain had his opportunity to do this for you. He failed. I'm to do this rotation. And I did. I completed it. When you read Revelation chapter 6 and verse 5 again, it said, I sat on a horse. I sat on the horse. And you must also keep in mind that the Son was promised to come back and shorten the days for the elect's sake. That's found in both Mark chapter 13, verse 22, and in Matthew chapter 24, verse 22. It's there. Just look at it. You'll find it. So with that said, if you'd like to write to us, you can. If you like, you can write to the Central Lodge in Miami, P.O. Box 472072. Again, Post Office Box 472072, Miami, Florida 33247. Write and we'll respond. Contact us on social media, not guaranteed. On Facebook, not guaranteed. Why? Because we've been monitored now. You think the world doesn't know that I'm back here and I'm here to redeem Israel? They know. The question is, do you? Praise Job. Anyway, I want to thank you for allowing me to come into your living room or your cell phone, wherever you watch this video from. Thank you for allowing me to come to you today to reveal a little bit of the secrets of how we keep the time, the true time, and the correct Sabbath day. With that, I say stay safe, Judah. Stay safe and stock up. Time is at hand, Yod, at hand. Praise Job.